Hey guys, the Comics Kid 2099 here, and I have a DVD that I want to talk to you about. Actually, a season of a TV show. Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles Season 1. This is a series that I've already seen the whole series, but for whatever reason, I don't think I ever reviewed this series. I did do a couple of videos talking about it. I believe I mentioned this series in a video I did a while back talking about TV shows that were canceled too soon or were taken away from us too soon. I believe I mentioned this series then, and I also did a video kind of talking about some of my theories on the ending of the series, the very end. So I won't be talking about that in this video since I'm just talking about Season 1. But as I was watching this, I remembered, hey, I never did review this series, so I thought I'd go ahead and do that. This is a very short season, only 9 episodes long. You could get through it very quickly. I think I was watching the series with my parents because they had never seen it before, and I wanted them to see it. I had seen it before, obviously, but we got through it in like 3 days, I think. I think we watched 3 episodes a night and got through it pretty fast. So basically the premise here is this is set after Terminator 2. And of course Terminator 2 was set in like the mid-90s. John Connor is like, honestly, he acts like he's about 10 years old, but I think the movie wants us to think that he's a little bit older than that. And so basically, this is set, I think, 2 years after that. So it's in 1999, and basically, the entire first episode, if you've only seen the first episode of the series and you just hated it and you didn't want to watch anymore, I would recommend you at least watch the first 3 episodes of the series and then decide if you want to keep watching. Because the problem with this series is that it's set in the past, and it doesn't want to be set in the past. It says, okay, since Terminator 2 was set in the mid-90s, we want to start from there and then get forward so that we can be set in the present day. How do we do that? They have this female Terminator, played by Summer Glau, and she is the good Terminator of this series, kind of like how Arnold was in the second and third movie, and how, what's-his-face from the Avatar movie, he was kind of sort of the good Terminator from Terminator Salvation. And so, she is playing that role here, and she is going to school with John at this new school that he goes to at the very beginning of the series, and then this evil Terminator is trying to kill John, and then she convinces the Connors, we need to jump forward in time so that we can stop Skynet from happening, and we know where it's going to happen. It's going to happen somewhere in Los Angeles. We just need to stop it from happening before it does. And you might be saying, why would they jump forward in time? That only gives them less time to stop it than what they had at first. And that is a good point, and I think the series realizes that. So they take one thing from Terminator 3, and they say that at some point after the events of Terminator 2, Sarah Connor dies of cancer. And I don't remember if the dates we are given here actually line up with what we were given in Terminator 3. I'm not sure. But I thought that was a very neat idea, taking something from Terminator 3 while at the same time creating its own timeline that completely ignores everything else about Terminator 3. I thought that worked really well, especially since Terminator 3 is one of those movies that I like it, but at the same time I really don't like the themes and the message of the movie. And so this series, by rejecting that movie, it creates a little bit more of a positive image, I think, for the Terminator franchise and universe. And so that's something that I really liked. Another thing I really liked about this series is that in the movies, all we ever saw was a very limited amount of time travel. You see, in the first movie, a robot is sent back in time to eliminate the resistance before it starts. And that seems like a very easy mission. All you have to do is kill Sarah Connor, and then the war is completely won. Admittedly, I'm not sure if the war would have ever started if it wasn't for John Connor. I'm not really sure about that. Would the machines have even existed if they had succeeded in killing Sarah Connor? Who knows? That's one of those questions that probably they would have existed, I don't know. But then in the second movie, again, you have a very limited mission. You have a Terminator who's sent back in time to protect the Connors, and you have a Terminator who's sent back in time to kill them. And you don't really get the sense that there's a whole lot of time travel going on in the world of the Terminator. In this series, you get the idea that there are a whole bunch of machines in the present day, and they all have different missions. It's not just kill the Connors. They each have a specific mission to help Skynet become what it needs to become so that the machines can rise. And then also, the human resistance fighters. They have a whole bunch of agents who have been sent back in time to prevent Skynet from becoming a thing. And so, I really like that it's almost like the people in the future, they realize that the war is always going to be a thing. So they just have to take each battle on its own merits. We have to just try and win this battle, and maybe we can win the war, or maybe the war is still going to thing, but at least we will have won this battle. That's something that I kind of liked about this series. It made a lot of sense, and it adds a lot of potential stories for this series to deal with. And you see that in the very first episode where Cameron says that she has a safety deposit box in this bank, and she set it up when the bank was first founded, but then we see a sign that says the bank was founded in the 1960s. So we've got Terminators and human resistance fighters being sent all over the place, forward and backward in time, and so that's an element that I think it adds to the franchise and doesn't just fundamentally change it for no real reason. Beyond that, after you get past the very first episode, and the reason I was saying that if you've seen the first episode and you really don't like it, that you should at least give a few more episodes a try, it's because the very first episode ends with these guys jumping forward to the year 2007, and then that's the end of the episode. It basically takes an entire episode to set up the status quo, which really, did it need an entire episode to do that? Probably not. The idea of machines are coming back in time to kill John Connor, who is the leader of the future, that's a pretty easy premise to sum up. In fact, at the beginning of every episode, Sarah Connor sums up that premise in a little bit more time than I just did. But it felt like this series wanted to really take its time in jumping forward to the year 2007 so that the series can be set in the present day and they don't have to be perpetually set in the year 1999. It's a little bit of a cheat. I don't even think they had to be set in the present day, but whatever, it is what it is. It allowed them to do other things, like introduce a character, and I am going to be spoiling something. If you haven't seen this series, you definitely need to go ahead and turn off the video right now and go watch the series or something like that, because I'm about to spoil. The way that they jump forward in time allows them to introduce Derek Reese, who is Kyle Reese's brother. And Kyle Reese is a resistance fighter sent back in time by future John Connor, and then he is the father of present-day John Connor. And Derek Reese is sent back in time, and he has his own mission that he goes and does, and then he meets up and is basically kind of part of Team Connor towards the end and middle of this season. And if you're just watching this season, you might be saying that he was introduced kind of late, because he doesn't even show up until about halfway into the season, and then by the end of the season, you're still not sure if he's going to be sticking with them or if he's going to be leaving, 3 or 4 episodes in. And you're pretty sure he's not going to leave. He's John's uncle. John isn't going to want one of the only family members that he has to leave them, but at the same time, you're not entirely sure that he's going to be sticking around with them, because his methods are extremely different from the methods that everyone else on this team has. And that also kind of adds a little something here. Cameron, the female Terminator, her methods and her way of doing things are very different from Sarah's. Sarah's methods are very different from Derek's. These guys, they all offer different things to the table, and they flesh out this team and make this team very functional in a way that works very well. What else do I have to say? Like I said, it's a very short season, only 9 episodes long. If you watch this season and you like it, and then you want to watch season 2, be warned that season 2 is 22 episodes long. I think it's 22. And so it is quite a bit longer than season 1. And so a lot of the plots that were introduced here, they didn't actually have enough time to be explored. Specifically, there is a girl who something is bugging her, and she goes to school with John, and she kills herself. She jumps off a building and commits suicide, and that is never explained. It's hinted at what happens, and I'm not going to get into it here. If you watch the series, you can kind of figure out what's happened, but it doesn't ever come right out and say, this is why this girl killed herself, and it doesn't ever follow up on that, because slight spoiler for the beginning of season 2, but shortly into season 2, John and Sarah decide that John needs to be homeschooled, and so he is no longer going to be going to school where he's going to school in season 1. And on the one hand, I was kind of okay with that when I was watching the series the first time, because I didn't really like that John was going to school. I kind of felt like it took away from this whole war with the future, and I really didn't think that Sarah would even bother sending John to school. I would figure she would just always homeschool him so that she could have more time to train him for what's to come. I really didn't think that she would bother sending him to school. Having said that, the school stuff does offer a lot of levity that isn't found elsewhere in the series. When it's just John at home having arguments with his mom, there's not a whole lot of levity other than Cameron's very matter-of-fact way of saying and doing things. But when they go to school, there's a lot more chances for levity there, and also chances for drama. Unfortunately, the series didn't actually capitalize on those dramatic situations. After season 1 is over, it basically just ignores everything at the school. So the guy who's John and Cameron's friend that they know at school, he asks Cameron if she wants to go to prom with him. That's never followed up on. I'm assuming that they had planned a prom episode where something would happen and a big fight would break out. That never happens. And then also, the girl who commits suicide, that's never followed up on, although there is a character in season 2 who did go to school with John. We didn't ever see her, but later John is dating this character in season 2, and she apparently went to school with John, and she does mention the girl who killed herself, but that's not really, that plot is not explored and followed up on in season 2. So that is a little bit of a problem. I'm not sure if this season was originally intended to be longer, or if they just decided we're not going to follow up on those stories in season 2, we're going to do something else in season 2. Here's what we're going to do. I really don't know. I know that a lot of people who watched this series, when they first found out that there was going to be a Terminator series, they wanted it to be resistance fighters versus machines in the future. They wanted it to be a war series, and of course that's not what you're getting. You're getting a series about John and Sarah in the year 2007 trying to prevent the war. So I'm wondering if there was just a lot of negative feedback to John being in school, and maybe the people who are working on this series decided, okay, we're going to take him out of school for season 2 and see if that makes these people a little bit happier. I wonder if that's what's going on, because I did hear that a lot of people really did not like the premise of this series and wanted it to be more people in the future fighting robots, which, you know, how are you going to do that on a weekly TV show budget? That's something that a lot of people would never really consider. Overall, I really like this series. I can't think of a whole lot of negatives other than there are some subplots that are dropped for season 2, and there is, it takes a little while to get to the meat of the season. In fact, when I was first watching the series a very long time ago, I only got, I think, maybe 3 episodes in, and I was just kind of sick of it. And if I had just stuck with it another episode, I probably would have kept watching it, because that's really when things start to kick. And those first 3 episodes, you're thinking, okay, this is just a very episodic series where there's not really a lot of connection between these episodes. But then you get to about episode 4 or so and you realize, oh, there is connection. There is more stuff going on here. There is something going on throughout this entire season. And I would definitely recommend this to anybody who is a fan of science fiction, specifically the Terminator movies. If you saw the movies and you're like, I don't know, a Terminator TV show, I would recommend that you watch this series. I think it works very well, at least season 1. Season 2, I had a few more problems with it, but I'm not reviewing season 2 now. So that's all I have to say about the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I really enjoyed this season. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back later in the week with another video, and I'll be doing some other videos next week, so be sure to check those out as well. Have a great rest of the day, and I will catch you later.